Hello, and welcome to another week of A Product of Proverbs. I'm your host, Joshua Fowler, here with my co-host and dad, Reverend Roy Fowler. This week, we're going to be using a specific proverb to not really focus on the coronavirus as we have in a couple of our past episodes. We're going to be talking about life in general and what you can do during these times, after these times, and something you should have been doing before these times. My father, who has been in the ministry for nearly 30 years now, he provides listeners with a certain biblical expertise and can provide a certain context to the word, while I can provide a certain relatability to our younger listeners for my millennial age group and then the kids younger than us. We hope that you enjoy this podcast, and we ask that you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts at. We also ask that you follow us on our Instagram at A Product of Proverbs to stay up to date with all of the latest news and episodes. The main thing that we ask is that if you like this podcast, you share it with anyone that you feel that may enjoy it or that it may help. With that being said, let's get into today's show. What's up, Dad?
Not much, Josh. How about you?
I'm doing great. Today was a great day. Actually, this weekend was a great weekend. Still following the social distancing guidelines. I got to see a lot of family. I spent Saturday helping your brother, my Uncle Jason, in his yard. So we took on a big project. Had a lot of fun doing that. We don't really talk as much and hang out as much as we used to when we were younger. He's married now. I'm older and working. It was different when he was in college. I was in high school. You know, we had free time then, but he lives where he lives. I'm down here. So it was cool to reconnect and get back together. And then, of course, today I pulled out the grill, and then Uncle Keith came over, and then I got to see Brandon, my cousin. And then even when I rode out, because this weekend the weather was super nice, so I took the top off the Jeep and my doors too, so I got the full experience. So when I rode out, I stopped by in Emerson and got to see Uncle Evan, and Kenzie was out there, and got to see Keith again, and even little Jacob.
Oh, okay.
Got to see a check out little Jacob. Yeah, so
That was good.
yeah, that's good. So yeah, this was a good weekend outside of the weather, the Jeep, the grilling. The main thing I enjoyed about this weekend was seeing family, because we've been so locked down, and I almost got the feeling when I'm ever going to see them again, so.
Yeah, things are different.
But yeah, that was pretty much my weekend. Saturday, Sunday, Friday, my company gave us off for a mental health day. So everybody in the company just take off. So I went golfing. That's when I took the top off the Jeep. So I rode around, I think, for about 2 hours. Just riding around. Stopped a quick trip somewhere, got me a slushie. Eat my Skittles, just kind of chilling, nice weather. That was cool to enjoy, although I will admit my heart sank every time I saw a Corvette out there today. So
I bet.
that's just about expected, though. But let's get into today's episode. Today's episode, we're going to be looking at Proverbs 23. So Proverbs 23 is mainly filled with the 30 sayings of the wise. 30 sayings of the wise starts in Proverbs 22, but the majority of them are in the 23rd chapter. We're going to look at saying number 8, which is the 4th verse. So Proverbs 23 and 4. It says in the NIV version that I'm reading, "Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness. Cast but a glance at riches, and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle." That's the entire saying. So there's 30 sayings of the wise. This is saying 8, which is verse 4 and 5. But the main one we want to look at is verse 4, where it says, "Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness." And it was cool. Before this episode, we were looking at the different versions of that. Mm-hmm. So in NIV, it says it that way, but the other ones have different sayings that might hit home better for the different listeners. So my favorite one out of those other versions was the NOT that says, "Don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Be wise enough to know when to quit."
It's very clear in its saying. I also like verse 5. I think you have to really take them together. because I think verse 5 kind of explains why you got to be careful with verse 4. And let's look at that. Don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Let's talk about that for a minute. Where you think he's talking about wear yourself out trying to get rich?
So I would say he was probably talking about whatever rich meant in your time. Because you can say materialism as a whole, but it just really means, I feel like, gluttony and abundance. And not even just abundance, but kind of hoarding or having too much or wanting too much. What's the story of you fly too high and your wings melt because of the sun? Thinking of, you can't just say materialism, but you can, because now it's cars and houses. But back then you might have wanted the biggest flock. So you was going to do everything you can, even if you was going to maybe steal some sheep, even if you was going to spend all your money on new sheep so your flock could grow, when you could have been living a better life or doing more, helping others. Don't really be so one-track minded on getting rich.
Yeah, I think that would be the main thing to get out of that, because you would miss out on so much if that's your only focus. I remember a few months ago you sent a story about this, I don't know if he was an Asian or Caribbean, but what it was this man he had a boat that he would go out and fish.
You're talking about the fisherman that was at the pier, because I'm looking it up right now.
And I think that's a good illustration to go along with what you're talking about.
I'm so glad you brought that story up, because that was posted April 29th, 2019 on my Facebook. And you know, Facebook reminds you every year what was posted. So just a few days ago, they reminded me of that story.
Okay.
This is perfect. I can share it here on the podcast.
Yeah, go ahead.
An American consultant was at a pier in a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked. Inside the small boat were several large yellow-finned tuna. The American complimented the Mexican on the quality of his fish and asked how long it took to catch them. The Mexican replied, "Only a little while." The consultant then asked why didn't he stay out longer and catch more fish. The fisherman said that he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. The American then asked the Mexican how he spent the rest of his time. The Mexican fisherman said, "I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take siesta with my wife, Maria, stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life, senor." The American consultant looked appalled. "I am a business consultant and could help you. You should spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds, buy a bigger boat. With the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats. Eventually, you would have a fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to middlemen, you would sell directly to the processor, eventually opening your own cannery. You would control the product, processing, and distribution. You would need to leave this small coastal fishing village and move to Mexico City, then LA, and eventually NYC, where you will run your expanding enterprise." The Mexican fisherman asked, "My friend, how long will all this take?" The American consultant replied, "I'd imagine 15 to 20 years. "But then what?" asked the fisherman. The consultant laughed and said, "That's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce the IPO and sell your company stock to the public. You'll become very rich. You'll make millions." "Millions?" replied the Mexican. "Then what?" The American said, "Then you would retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take siesta with your wife, stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine and play guitar with your amigos." So you can do what you're doing, which is enough. It's good enough. You have a happy, a healthy life, find ways to make an impact, play with your kids, hang out with your friends, have a great relationship with your wife or your spouse. Or you can spend all day fishing and miss out on your kids. Spend all day fishing, don't know who your wife is. Spend all day fishing to hopefully get back to that simple life that you kind of already got.
Yeah, so and I thought when you mentioned this passage, that story immediately came to mind. And another passage that comes to mind out of the Bible is, I think it's Philippians 4:11, where Paul said, I've learned to be content, and I think that's one of the things that we got to be careful, because you can spend all your time chasing something, spend all your energy and effort. And just like that story, that man would have lived his whole life trying to get back to where he already was. But he would have missed it all out, like you said. Kids would have been grown. Wife would have been a stranger. He would have lost his youthfulness. Friends probably passed on. And so he'd have missed out on so much. And that verse is real good because it said, don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Be smart enough to know when to quit. I guess when to quit chasing it. When you realize that that's not really what's valuable and what's important. I guess it's placed priority or misplaced priorities that's probably at stake here.
And I can throw some relatability into it with a personal story and just where this applies to my life. And maybe there are listeners that are in a similar position, or maybe it's not the same type of situation, but it's something that is the next thing you're looking forward to. I think about when I was going to move to LA. So you remember I wanted to graduate college and then move to LA and start my career.
Yep.
I wanted to move all the way across the country from the family and friends and frat brothers and everything, and post up in a beautiful place I love, place where it's fun, and create and do something there. And I thought about it. If I would have went to LA and maybe took a entry-level job at a lower position and did a sacrifice thing, what would I have missed out on in the relationships and friendships and perspective that was built here? That I would have been there by myself, and maybe my career would have did this, or maybe there really wasn't too much upside to going out there. When you had to do the pros and the cons, it was just that dream, that get rich. Don't wear yourself out, because realistically, if I would have stretched the line, I would have stretched it thin. I would have moved to LA and found a way, made it work, and wore myself out just trying to make it work. But I stayed here. I could easily move to LA now. I could easily, in the point of my career, find a position that would allow for me to live there. My company actually just told me you can work from home. If I really still wanted to, I could move to LA now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at buying a house. I just buy a house there. I could move anywhere. So it's like the patience and the not wearing yourself out to get to some immediate goal. You get the bigger picture, and then later on down the road, that will be possible just because you've been working on all these other things. But if you chase that thing and don't work on these other things, not only, like verse 5, it's going to fly away like an eagle, but then you also ain't going to have nothing else there. So you got to have more than that dream, whether it's moving somewhere else, whether it's a big house, I'm going to buy this dream house, whether it's your car, your Corvette, whether it's whatever it is that is that destination. I think that's what we were trying to communicate earlier in the episode, was not materialism, but just whatever it is that is your soul drive, or like you think is that point. Stop and smell the roses along the way.
And I think it's good too, and it's not wrong to have goals, have desires, but I think it's important to, as you said, count the cost. You gotta count the cost. You gotta see what things are gonna really cost you. And I think in doing that, then you can make a determination as to whether or not that's a path you need to take. I think you have points in life where you have different levels and different goals, different objectives, but you've got to be willing to pause for a moment and think things through. Use wisdom. I think that's very important. I don't think there's anything wrong with having desires and dreams and aspirations. I think it's good. Just imagine where we would be even now in life and in the world if nobody had dreams, goals, and aspirations. But then you got to be willing to think about just what are you willing to pay. You got to count the cost. of everything. And I think this passage helps us to understand that you don't want to sell your soul for that, because here today, gone tomorrow, and then what do you have?
So I think you just talked yourself into a corner that you didn't know that you was talking into. The title of this episode is going to be Surprise.
Okay.
The reason for this is our next episode next week is going to be our season finale.
Season finale.
We're on episode 19 right now.
Okay.
Next episode is episode 20, and I got something up my sleeve.
Oh, Lord.
I got something up my sleeve for episode 20, but even more importantly, we're going to do a special season finale, episode 20. Outside of that, really, we just want to take a break on the podcast to plan out season 2. You know, we did 20 episodes. It's May the 3rd. Right now, we started December 31st. Is that when we recorded the first one? So
first episode.
We've done an episode a week for 4 months. The 4-week months, the 5-week months, we got an episode every week. But we got all the episodes in, which means we got content here. So what I need to do is dive through this and build the lessons learned repository. That's a project management term. I got a lot of stats on the listeners, the plays, where they was at, where people turn off at. So we'll be able to dive into the data behind it and also listen to it and take notes on things so that when season 2 comes out, it's on another level. I also have other things I'm working on, which I'm not going to speak on right now, that also will be coming out with season 2. So to get all of that ready to do it proper, we ain't just going to be letting this slip and slack while that's getting ready. And just because we're taking a break on publishing don't mean we're taking a break on recording. Even episodes that might not make it out, we're still going to keep it going and keep growing.
Okay.
But we are going to give the listeners a break. And I'm going to build and work on this YouTube. So take all of this. We have hours of content. Figure out a way to work them into YouTube and short clips, and start building the brand through some email marketing, and kind of, because in season 2, now that we have season 1 for somebody to go listen to if they want to, when we do season 2, we're going to put some money behind marketing, promo. We're going to actually go through it. I'm working with a lawyer right now on the trademark. So we're getting it ready to, it's launched, it's live, it's real, but we're going to take it there.
Next level.
We're going to take it there. So we got to shut it down and take it there. So surprise to you, surprise to the listeners.
Yeah.
I got a lot of big plans for it, and also a lot of good feedback on this season, these episodes, how impactful it was, how good it was. So working with that feedback and then just making it better, making it more of what it is. So we'll probably be back sometime midsummer. We appreciate our listeners. We thank you for your support on this episode, on all of these episodes. If you've listened to all 19, if this is your first one, if this is your second one, if you listen to the pilot and then this one, however it works, we thank you for tuning in. We thank you for the support. We did this for us as the archive, as us having these memories and these conversations, but we also did this for you because as people have told us, this has really helped people with their spirituality, bring people closer to God. This has helped us, helped me personally with my spirituality, spending more time in the Bible, help with just your energy and how you feel overall, because when you're hearing people say that they really enjoy or love this, or this makes them feel better, that make you feel better. Make you feel like you're giving back and doing something positive in the world. So I thank you listeners for your support, and I'm glad it could help. And I thank you for sitting down through this, because we might have put out 30-minute episodes, but we sit through hours in these recordings.
Yeah, we did.
So thank you for this, and this has been great and fun, and I can't wait for season 2. What I really can't wait for is this finale. Oh, listeners, please turn into the finale. I'm hyping it up because it's going to be all that.
So next week is the finale.
All things go as planned. We'll be putting it out next Monday as scheduled. Things don't go as planned. We might be a week behind. So we might take a Monday off, season finale that next week. But I like our consistency vibe, so we going to have it out next Monday. Things going to go as planned and scheduled.
All right.
There we go. So this is another episode of A Product of Proverbs, our 19th episode, but really focusing on don't wear yourself out. Life is bigger than money. You got to stop and smell the roses, and you got to enjoy the things and the people around you. You can't be so one-side-minded and focused on that goal and so driven that you don't nurture the relationships around you. You don't see the beauty around you. So this is another episode. Dad, what you got to say for our listeners?
Well, I tell you, I've just enjoyed it, and I do appreciate you listening to us. And I've just had a ball here with my son, sitting down, talking about life, his perspective, my perspective. You know, I have the biblical background and Christian views and worldview, but I do realize that it's all relative to me. So I really enjoyed it, and listeners, this is new to me, and I'm excited to see. I ain't no telling what he's got planned, but I know it's going to be good, and we'll just wait and see. I hope he don't wait till Sunday to let me know what we're doing, but if he does, we'll get through it as well. But thank you so much for just being there, because we wouldn't be who we are without you that are listening to us. So I just pray God continue to bless you and keep you. And do take these lessons that we're given, because even today, as it relates to the riches, don't wear yourself out. There's been so many accounts of people that have focused on getting rich and then ended up losing everything. There's nothing wrong with money. Money is not the problem. It's when you make money your God. That's where it becomes a problem. But live life and just enjoy life. And if you got a dream, try to pursue it. But don't let that dream become a nightmare.
There we go. Have the dream. Don't let the dream have you. But with that, we're going to sign off of this episode of A Product of Proverbs. I guess this is our last regular episode of season 1, so a little sad signing off for this one, because this has been a fun project to do. But as we've just said for the last 2 minutes, thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for my special surprise.